We up?
All right. Welcome once again, everyone. Today we are about to get started on part 2 of disaster management. That would be the conclusion of the second part. Today's session will be taught by His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Damian Ramesar. And I'm going to introduce him to come on and he will take the lead from here. Dr. Damian.
Thank you, Dr. Kalloo. Greetings, salutations, and good evening or good morning, depends on what part of the world you are. Glad you could join us. It's my honor and privilege to be here on this portal again and to share with you. And I hope that by the time the next hour goes around, you would have gained some more knowledge and it will serve you well in your community and in your own personal life. All right, I'll skip the preamble a little bit. All right. So we in the Caribbean especially, well, we're especially prone to hurricanes, earthquakes, volcano eruptions. Now, we were teaching the course with the last cohort and no, 2 cohorts before. And during the course, we were getting notification and activation of the evacuation that was made mandatory in St. Vincent. The island of St. Vincent had a huge volcanic eruption with a lot of ash being vented from that volcano, from that crater, as well as pyroclastic flow threatening the very lives and existence of at least 30,000 people in the north half of the country. So what we were able to witness through sharing of a lot of video on WhatsApp was not only the actual eruptions, but how the evacuations took place. So essentially, when something like this happens on a national level, the entire population of St. Vincent is barely 130,000 people. So you're talking just about 1/5 of the population having to evacuate at very short notice. Right now, they had some rumblings and they were feeling the tremors, and there were a lot of scientists who were checking out the volcano and giving seismic warnings. Volcanologists were saying that we have an imminent eruption, and they had some time to prepare the people in the villages on the cone of the volcano itself. So these people essentially knew they would have to move one day. As to how much preparation they got from the actual government in terms of what to pack and where they would be moved to, I wasn't privy to that. But a lot of passenger vessels made their way from other Caribbean islands to St. Vincent to help move people off the island because it's a tiny island. I've been there a few times myself for work. And there's no real large stadium to say that you could shelter people. They have a cricket stadium that they could probably house 2,000 people, and they did use it. They used a couple secondary schools in the south of the island, but they could barely hold 400 or 500 people in these secondary schools. And the rest of the people, they had to move them out. Some went to St. Lucia, some went to Grenada, some went to the Grenadines, some went to Barbados. Now, in Barbados, the ash cloud went so high into the sky from St. Vincent, and there was ash fall in Barbados for a couple weeks well. All right. So in some places in Barbados, there was up to a foot of ash landing on Barbados. Now, the Barbadians didn't really mind too much, from what I'm told. They knew it was great fertilizer for their land. So still, there's a lot of health issues in the fallout subsequent to the eruption, because this ash is, fortunately, by the time it gets to Barbados, it's cool, but you don't want to be breathing in that stuff. It would cause silicosis. It would exacerbate anybody who has asthma or any lung problems. It would cause you serious discomfort. If it gets in your eye, it burns, and then it's just a nuisance. It's getting on everything. One of my business associates told me, boy, I had to use so much garbage bags to cover everything that it wasn't funny. All right. So from the last day, we covered disaster, up to disaster and emergency planning, preparedness, and response. So today we want to look at recovering and what might be your role in the local community and the chaplain's role dealing with interagency interactions. All right. Now, disaster response is taking appropriate actions to respond to an event, including action taken and measures planned in anticipation of, during, and immediately after an event, to make sure that effects are minimized and people affected by the event are given immediate relief and support. So that's a long, long definition about what disaster response is. But to break it up, the response, the main aim of disaster response is saving lives, protecting property, and attempting to make an affected area safe. All right, so it's people, property, and environment in that order that we would want to respond and save. So the lives of people is the key thing. So a lot of what we do, where we're going to evacuate people from, how we're going to evacuate them, where we're going to take them to, how we're going to provide for them, right? All that has to be planned in advance. Now, don't expect that if you are the victim of a natural disaster that they're going to put you in the Hilton. Nobody has a budget for that. If you could afford to go to the Hilton, that's great for you. However, where they're going to put you, they will take care of your basic needs. And that is all that we're required to do by law. And our basic needs is food, water, shelter. Now, I have been through a couple of flooding events in Trinidad, and people who were losing their homes, we moved them to a safer area, put them in a shelter, bring them meals, bring them food, provide cots and blankets for them. And the people, one guy wanted to get up in one of my guys' faces, one of my employees' faces, and demanding, I need Wi-Fi, which is just past ridiculous. I mean, we're there trying to help you. Your house has been flooded out, but you're up in our face demanding Wi-Fi. We're not even online because we're working to bring people out and save livestock. After we get the people out, we were attempting to use some of the rescue boats to bring out like some goats and that kind of thing, And then when we get to the disaster management center, this guy is arguing about Wi-Fi. It was just absolutely unbelievable. But these creatures walk among us. And if you're involved with a shelter, you are not obligated to provide Wi-Fi for anybody. Whoever is a victim, they need to know that what we're providing for you is make sure that you're fed, make sure that you have water. You may have bathroom and wash up facilities. We don't guarantee that we could get you clothes immediately, but we're gonna get you a place to sleep in relative safety. All right. So a lot of people who have never even thought about their own disaster plan, when the panic hits them, the victims, they're in a total state of disarray. And some people deny the situation. They don't want to let themselves believe what is going on. So this is why in the previous session this week, I was encouraging everybody to make a plan. And today, we're explaining to you some of the absolute realities when an, an emergency situation occurs. Now, a lot of us may not have been in an emergency situation. We may have witnessed what was going on through the news or by third-party accounts. And not many of us have had the opportunity to volunteer for the response and recovery. All right. But when you get there, you're going to see people acting really strangely, really crazy. And it's important that you work with the agencies. I have seen where people would start looting houses. They know that people have evacuated, and other people say, well, nobody's there. Let's go see what they left. The people who leave a house in an emergency situation, they didn't abandon it totally. When things change, they want to go back. That's their home. But there are elements sometimes, this is where law and order is needed, that some people say, aha, that's an opportunity. Nobody's in the house. That's an opportunity. And the Bible talks about that, about first you bind the strong man, and then you're able to take advantage of who's inside of the house. Well, in this case, it's not binding the strong man, it's when he leaves and he takes whatever he can with him due to the circumstances, and it really leaves an opening, a gap, where the enemy and those under the influence of the enemy can cause further grievous destruction and harm. All right, so if you are doing your own evacuation plan, and if you're planning the route when you have to leave your home and go to a safer place, make sure to pay attention to security issues, right? How you're going to secure your house. If you have pets and livestock, you have to plan for those also during the emergency, afterwards, and the response and recovery. So local governments are primarily responsible for responding to disaster events in their local government agency, with district and state levels providing appropriate resources and support. Now, this is how it works in Trinidad, where, for example, where I am in the Marabella community, we have the counselor and those of us who have made efforts to prepare. We're responsible for responding to the disaster event, and we can call on the San Fernando Regional Corporation and the City Corporation, and they can mobilize, let's say, a team of soldiers, a squadron of soldiers, or they can mobilize a police unit who can come and help us with maybe some crowd control, or by just making patrols of the streets. And they can help us also with deploying, let's say, municipal dump trucks and a backhoe that can help us with clearing a drain or clearing a roadway. All right. And this is what I'm talking about here is post disaster. Disaster recovery, this arises from a range of natural disaster events that pretty much destroy everything. So in St. Vincent right now, they responded to the volcano, And then after the volcano died down and the scientists deemed that it's safe to return, the people began the recovery stage. They returned to the island, they went back to their villages, and they started cleaning up their houses, cleaning up their yards, removing the ash from their roofs, wiping down, and basically trying to make their homes habitable again. And they would have gotten some assistance from the government. However, the government is not responsible to rebuild your entire home and to do everything for you to restore your life back to normal. There's nobody going to do that for you. They will help as much as they can. But the work of rebuilding in the recovery phase is yours. And a lot of times we've seen where there were some people, like they lost their house to a fire or something like that, and they're in a shell shock state. You know, a lot of mental issues happen. And for those people who are not so strong, this is where we, the chaplains, have the opportunity to go into counsel with those who need the support. Now, other people may have prepared and they accepted, okay, the flood took out the entire downstairs of my place. I know I'm going to have to gut all my carpets, all my cupboards. I have to clean it out, and I have to find money to replace it. Some people have that mindset, and they know what they're going to do. They plan it out, and they know in 4 months' time I'll be back to normal, and I'll fix my drainage, and they have a plan in their head, and whatever acceptance they get, they can use it, incorporate it into their plan. But other people are not so well prepared mentally. And it's an opportunity for us as chaplains to be instrumental in encouraging these people and instructing them, giving them counsel that, this is an opportunity. It looks like it is a disaster, and you've been through a lot, you've lost a lot. But there is the opportunity to rebuild and to do better the second time around. Now, it's a huge cost when you lose your home. It's a huge blow. But you didn't lose your life. And that's a positive thing. All the material stuff you're going to leave here. So, having the opportunity to do better, we as chaplains, we need to be able to understand that it is an opportunity and to encourage those victims who are not so strong, who are a little bit weaker or confused or angry, to encourage, counsel, and guide them. Whoops. All right. So when you start interacting with the state level, you will realize that within the local governments, there are triggers that activate the response levels, right? And it's everybody has a different kind of nomenclature to it. So some people may call it one thing. Somebody else in another country may call it another thing. But it's basically the alert levels. And I use the example of a hurricane bearing down on an island. First, you'll get a tropical storm watch, which means we're looking at a tropical disturbance, and in 48 hours, within 48 hours, we have the possibility of landfall of a tropical storm. And then we may have a tropical storm warning, because it's a little bit tricky predicting the path of the storm or hurricane. Then we issue the warning. So first we issue the watch to alert people that, hey, something's going to happen here. We know there's a situation developed. We know something's happening. We know something's coming. start preparing, start working your plan. And then within 24 hours, we tell them, well, it's going to hit us. So those of you in the coastal areas and the low-lying areas, make movement. And that's what we call the warning. So similarly, for different types of events, there may be different nomenclature for how they trigger to put you on alert and then to tell you to activate and move. So there may be also hazard-specific activations. In Trinidad, in Point Fortin, there is a huge industrial complex called the Atlantic Liquefied Natural Gas Complex. And they work with defense line communities because they process natural gas under pressure and in cryogenic conditions and make it into liquid and store it so that they could put it into natural gas carriers and ship it outside. They have the potential to make a huge explosion. Now, the safety team there is among some of the best in the world, and they work really hard to make sure that the plant is safe. However, 3 years ago, they did suffer a fire, but they were so well planned and prepared that they were able to bring that fire under control in less than an hour and prevent any catastrophic damage. All right, so in terms of Atlantic LNG, as soon as the fire occurred, they issued warning to the entire community that, hey, neighbors, we're having a plant problem here and we're taking care of it. So they gave the warning to the fence line community people that we do have a plant problem so that people could choose to monitor or to evacuate. Right? So as early as possible, they didn't wait. Their plan is that they don't wait for problems to snowball before they open their mouths to say something. They are an industrial establishment, and if you look at the news, a lot of the websites, safety websites and OSHA websites, there's a lot of cases, hundreds and thousands of cases of industrial explosions that killed people who were close by. So in Atlantic LNG case, they don't waste any time in issuing warnings. As soon as there's alarm go on in the plant, they issue warnings to the neighbors. Same thing in Point Lisas in Trinidad. As soon as there's a problem with one of the plants, because these things happen sometimes, they issue warnings to the fence line communities and they activate everybody else. So what they have is a community. They have a number of different industrial plants. They have ammonia, steel, methanol, fertilizer complexes, oil blending, um, flour. There's a huge feed mill and a number of different industrial type things across a large area. And if there's a problem on any one plant, every other plant response team is activated, right? They may not have to go to the plant to respond, but they're activated and they put on alert that in case we need you, get ready, put your boots on and get ready to come help us. All right. In the communities in Trinidad, we're not at that level yet. But I would say that compared to 20 years ago, we are a lot better equipped and trained in Trinidad. We're not where we need to be, but we're getting there. Compared to some of the Scandinavian countries and Australia, New Zealand, that are fraught with a lot more things than we in the lovely Caribbean. Um, some people argue that we don't need to be as prepared as other countries. I disagree. I think we do. But the process is a little bit longer for us because we're not as affluent in the Caribbean. And likewise, with the tribal nations, I've made contact with some of the Guyanese tribes, and they not at the situation where they're able to train all their people, but they're willing to look at development in their villages and their communities. Because, for example, especially in Guyana, they know that the country is booming right now. And eventually, things are going to improve the life of the citizens. All right. Let's move right along here. So, in the response and recovery, the Disaster Coordination Center will be pretty busy because this is where everybody goes, everybody who's involved in the response. You would go to the Disaster Management Center or the Disaster Coordination Center, and you log in on a daily basis, and receive your assignment. So the coordinators, after a disaster occurs, after a natural disaster occurs, they get really, really busy. And we often don't realize that people who do this role, it's very demanding, and they themselves have a life, right? They're not paid to be in the Disaster Coordination Center 24/7, but they are often there for very long periods, and it's very, very stressful managing these centers. So they coordinate, they practice, they train before the disaster occurs, because under the law, Trinidad and Tobago law allows for some people to be so trained and have those responsibilities. All right. So at the local disaster coordination center, for example, for me here in Marabella, it's just us neighbors. But at the district coordination center at San Fernando, they have some more resources there, and we know who we have to interact with there. And then on the national level, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, we have the duty officers' names, and we have the names of some of the people who we would need to relay information to, such that we can access resources for different types of emergencies. So in your country, you may not be as ready. And this is where my company consults in helping you plan out, helping you to develop budgets so that you're able to approach governments or different funding agencies with a legitimate price tag in mind to put things in place, and with the training of the people and preparation, designs of the disaster coordination centers, helping you spec equipment, and everything that you need to bring your community up to the level of readiness that you desire. Now, under the law, someone needs to have the legislative authority to declare a disaster situation or to extend the situation. All right. Now, in the news and in the movies, we often hear about the governor of a state in the US, all right, who is the one to declare state of emergency and to call out the National Guard. And normally, when they call out the National Guard, that means there is a state of emergency. However, in the Caribbean, we don't have National Guard. And it has to be really, really big for us to mobilize the defense forces that we do have. So the disaster situation normally is only declared by the legally appointed official when it is necessary to exercise those additional powers to prevent or minimize loss of human life, illness or injury to humans, property losses or damage, and damage to the environment. So, where I work is an oil company, and we basically drill and produce crude oil from offshore and from on land. And then we pipe it on into huge tank farms to sell to large ships. And we have to plan. We sell basically 1 million barrels at a time to these large ships, and we have plans in place for if anything goes wrong in the entire process. All right, from the rig that we drill with, the trunk pipeline, the tank storage areas, the jetty that we discharge to the ship, and even if something goes wrong with the ship. All right, we have all these plans in place and we practice those. And what we call it is our disaster toolkit. All right, so in the PowerPoint here, we have some links that you can look at the Queensland, Australia disaster management toolkit. And there's a lot more that you can get from NOAA in the US. And there's a lot more other sites at the end of the PowerPoint. There's a resource page with a number of sites that I've included that you can click on and get some more information. In terms of communicating, radio, television, these were the traditional methods. Now we have cellular phones where we have Twitter pages and that kind of thing. So social media, has opened up an area of technology with almost instant information broadcast. But you have to be careful, since it's an open platform, that you be discerning with the source of information. All right. There's a lot of false information that goes out when something happens. In terms of weather issues, the Meteorological Office is responsible for issuing warnings about severe weather, cyclones, and tsunamis. Warnings about bushfires, etc., might be the purview of the fire department. Chemical spills would be, for example, in Atlantic LNG, the plant HSE, right? It's important for you when you take stock of where you're living, what's around you, and who may be the one who's authorized to issue you a warning or a statement to prepare you for an event. All right. So in the Caribbean, SIDERA and SIDEMA have done a lot in facilitating the tsunami warning system. All right. And I can take it offline with anyone who wants to know more about the tsunami warning system. That's if you don't get it online. You could feel free to contact me about it. The decision to evacuate. We touched on this earlier. All right. You can voluntarily evacuate based on the information you get about an imminent threat, or you can wait until somebody tells you you have to evacuate. But that does not mean they're going to tell you where to evacuate to. If they have to force you into evacuation, where they take you to may not have any creature comforts. But if you have planned your voluntary evacuation beforehand, then you know where you're going to go and you know what provisions there may be there. If an evacuation warning is issued, this informs and enables individuals and communities to take appropriate action in response to an impending hazard. All right. And what sometimes happens is that they don't have enough time and everybody hits the road around the same time and you end up with a traffic jam. Well, a lot of people ready to go and unable to. The process of withdrawal involves the physical and coordinated movement of exposed persons to safer locations. All right. So compared to what we sometimes see in movies and stuff, a lot of work is done by the disaster management people to coordinate the thoroughfares, and what they work with the traffic police to issue motorist warnings which lane to use, which road to use to get to a safer location. And the police would do what they can to keep traffic there uh, dedicated to the community members who moving from one spot to another. All right. So all of that takes a lot of pre-planning. Now, when you evacuate, you get to a shelter. What are you going to do at the shelter? There needs to be a shelter management team. All right. Now, extreme weather conditions, they may destroy your house, and if the weather is bad enough to destroy people's houses, then it may affect the shelter construct. So this is why it's important to design the shelters properly, locate them in a good place that is not prone to floods or high winds and such, and construct it strong enough that if you put in people in there, they don't suffer the same fate that they would have faced in their own home. All right. Now, post disaster, when a hurricane, let's say, is coming, there's nobody who's going to be able to cater, let's say, 1,000 meals and put it in the shelter so that when evacuees get to the shelter, they are assured that they're going to get a hot meal. That's just not going to happen. And then after the hurricane hits, there's going to be a lot of logistical problems in getting aid to the shelter itself. There will be downed power lines, there will be fallen trees, there will be rock slides and landslips. So you need to make your own plan. If you need to move to a shelter, you got to walk with some food and water to take care of your own self. As I explained in the previous session, there's not much available there when disaster strikes. Not much is going to be waiting on you. Pack it for yourself, what you need to take, put it in a backpack, and get ready to move with it. So I don't know how many of us did any homework between Tuesday and now in terms of looking at your personal disaster plan. All right. Now, with your kids, this is a great way to teach them how to be prepared individuals. Okay. So arm yourself with information, reach out to us. We can always help you, and we'll be glad to share information that will help you prepare yourself. After the disaster event has passed, returning evacuees to their home requires careful planning to ensure it's well managed and coordinated. And this was a good example of this was in St. Vincent, where the return to home was very well coordinated, and people didn't really have much of a problem. They knew what they were going to face. They knew what help the government was going to give them, and they knew it was going to be a process to rebuild. And St. Vincent was a good case of what can happen. Now, the disaster management group, they have to be trained in logistics. And what is logistics? basically how to get resources moved from one location or another to meet operational requirements. All right. So it's not just moving stuff from one place to another, it's moving the right things in the right quantities at the right time. And this is a series of skills that need to be developed. And I could tell you, logistics management is not for everyone. All right. But at least try it and see if you might be one of those who can make that a career. Now, based on the community and how hard it's hit, you may have to issue a request for assistance. Also, if you're in a different area and you receive a request for assistance, please have both of them go through the Disaster Management Center. All right? Because the Disaster Management Center would be able to help coordinate the logistics better. Anytime request for assistance is sent or received, the disaster management people, they not only assess the request for assistance, but they monitor its status, they interact with other agencies, and they create forward plans, because sometimes a community might say, we need food now. And we have, let's say, 500 people here need food now. So the Disaster Management Center coordinates and makes arrangements, gets 500 meals, or let's say 1,000 meals, and they get it out to the people. After they eat it, what happens? This is where logistics coordinators plan. Next 2 days, they're going to get the same request until the people are back on their feet. We need meals. You're going to get the request again. So this is why the Disaster Management Center is important in managing the requests for assistance, because then they can put things in place, knowing that even though the community sent one single request, what they're really saying is that we're going to need support. All right, so this is a flow chart here that I wouldn't go into this. You could always check this out on your own. But this is how well we've taken the disaster management process, where we've mapped out processes, we've mapped out activities so that we're able to train other people to assist us. All right, we've done the homework and we put everything down on paper so that we can train other people. Now, after disasters, a lot of times people take opportunity to launder money, to steal money, to manufacture money, to take advantage, and the love of money is where we see evil things happening. Now, money is important, but we don't love money. We see it as a tool. And I hope that's the case for all of my audience here tonight. All right. So financial prudence is another aspect that needs to be touched on. If you're a disaster management coordinator, you may have a budget to work with and you may be in charge of some cash. That cash has to be secured and it has to be accounted for down to the last cent, because it's not your money. All right. And some people, they just don't have the discipline until they get the training. All right. Also, if I'm working at a disaster coordination center, I have forms that I have to keep my notes on, and every 2 to 3 hours, I have to give a report upline, and then at the end of the day, I have to send in my daily report. All these reports are important so that the whole structure is informed of what's going on, because oftentimes not everybody is there at the disaster management center, and the information is collated in the right way, it's put together, and it's in a format that is sent up to the decision makers. For example, the Minister of National Security, or the Minister of Trade, or a request would come from the Prime Minister, let's say to the Supermarket Owners Association, with a request for donations, right? And having that chain of command, it lends credence to the whole thing. And the structure would prevent wastage. It would prevent confusion. It would prevent people from taking advantage of the situation. Right? So I just mentioned there the tasking logs. When you do the NIMS ICS training, and those of you in these 2 sessions, if you've been tickled into looking at a career in disaster planning and disaster management, you will need to do the NIMS ICS training, the National Incident Management System Incident Command training. All right. The Coast Guard does it, the Army does it, the Air Force does it. Basically, a lot of companies also, they train their people in the same system. All right. So what they do, once everybody is talking the same language, then everybody could coordinate and we can share information easier. There's no translation needed. Debriefs are important. So if I'm in charge of a disaster management center, I may have to do some hot debriefs for those who have gone out in response operations and come back. All right. And the debrief is where they give me the pertinent information so that I could, put down the information that they bring to me and channel it to where it needs to go. All right. So while the disaster coordination is going on, we have hot debriefs. When the event is done, we have a post-event debrief or end of day debrief or an end of week debrief. It's all suggestions. And when we get to the point where we're building up the system for whoever it is, whichever local government or company or church, when we're building it up, we will put in the structure depending on, it is a little bit open-ended. We can always fix the structure. All right, so the management information systems. You may be fortunate to have some computers where you can put the forms on electronically, and it's easier to track it on a computer rather than walking around with a sheaf of paper in your hand. There's still the need for some forms though. But in terms of the disaster management system, there's a lot that we can do in both hard and soft copy. All right. So the recovery and the response, these can be complex processes. But we need people to lead these, especially with a community-led approach where we're able to assist and enable individuals, families, and the community to participate in their own recovery. And herein is an important opportunity for a church group in an area. Now, if your church serves a community of, let's say, a part of Port of Spain, if you don't plan, if you don't go out and make known to the disaster management coordinator and the other agencies that will be involved in response and recovery to an event. They will not know what you can do, and they will not use you. All right. So individuals and the community may need different levels of support at various times. And as a church or an organization on the ground, you may know, right? As a tribal leader, you may know. But if you don't have that network with those responsible for the response, then there's a lot, everybody's standing around in the dark, and there's a lot of time that's going to be wasted. All right. Now, we need to channel efforts through pre-identified and existing community assets, including the local knowledge, community strengths, and resilience. And if you can coordinate your tribe or your church and train some of your people, then you are a resource that will help the community in the recovery process. All right. And when you go through the effort to prepare, you remember there's going to be succession planning needed, where when we train the current crop, we able to train another group of people who could take over from us, and we share the knowledge. All right. So in the training, besides the paperwork that needs to be done, there's going to be a lot of training and practice. All right. In terms of effective communication, a lot of people, some people, they know how to talk, but they don't know how to listen. And then there are other people who listen quietly and attentively, but they, for whatever reason, they won't chime in and say their piece. Right? Capacity is important. So we may have a first wave of volunteers and we train those, but that's only a tiny fraction of the community. So the training is not something that you would want to do just one and done. Training has to be planned. For example, with this whole portal with the AUGP, this is not the first and it's not going to be the last series of training that we're going to do. And we encourage you to get the word out there that we're training people, we're conducting world-class training, and right now it's basically for free. But as many people as could get educated and get information as we can reach, it's going to save lives. Because when it comes to disaster recovery, disaster management, disaster preparation, what you don't know could kill you. So we want to put people in the know. So in effective recovery, it's an integrated approach. It's multidisciplinary. All right. We have to do needs analysis, consequence management, community engagement, planning, and service delivery. There's a lot of things we have to do. We have to assess what was damaged. All right. If we need to put back up 500 power poles and reroute the lines, then that's the job for the specialist utility people. Right. But somebody needs to do the assessment. Then there's the human and social aspect. Throughout this whole pandemic, there's been a huge human and social aspect that, some communities were very poorly prepared for, whereas others were better prepared. Then there's environmental fallout. If we have a hurricane and there's a lot of debris in the streets and damaged houses with discarded materials, where does all that go? You might pile stuff up in front of your house on the street after you start cleaning up your own dwelling, but who's going to collect it? Who's going to move it somewhere? What are they going to do with it? All this has to be planned. And then in terms of rebuilding, The local hardwares may run out of material before they can reorder. All these things have to, it's the subject of long discussions. And fortunately, the the states, right, the government has put in some considerable effort to at least have the conversations and make the plans for these things, should events like hurricanes affect the country. All right. Governance, the aspect of governance is where we have accountabilities so that we have transparency. If we're going to take taxpayer dollars to pay somebody a salary to become a professional to manage certain aspects of disaster preparation, disaster response, and disaster recovery, we have to have governance that we can account for all that we spend. All right. We have to have those. And that is what we mean by governance. This chart here basically shows the whole governance structure in Australia. And it may be similar, it may be different for you. If we're involved in creating some stuff for you and helping you in your preparedness, these will be some of the things that we prepare for you. And it makes it easier to share the information with successive groups that would want to be involved in disaster preparedness and planning. Communication plans. There's a lot that we can talk about. How to communicate internally. There's communication with your community, communication with the stakeholders, communication with the response agencies. There's a lot of communication, and the communication supposed to be managed with a communication plan. And not many people have had the opportunity to create a communication plan. All right. Um, but with the communication plan, it makes sure that you have a consistent approach across all so that you do the pre-connection, and when you're ready to execute a plan, things go smoothly during operations. So in phases of recovery, when you have a disaster occur in the red there from the diagram, then we have a planned response to disaster. And then in phase one, there's post-impact relief, if we're going clockwise, and early recovery. In phase two, we have reconstruction. Phase three is where we transition, right? And in this transition, our reconstruction should have been better than what was destroyed or lost. And then after we transition, we go back into business as usual with a new normal, right? Where we're preparing better and we're building resilience. And the outcome of learning from the disaster is community resilience. Now, we do not have to wait for our community to suffer disasters to build resilience. We can start building it from now. We can learn from other people. All right. So in phase one, it's early recovery. Phase two, construction, and all the notes are listed out here. All right. And at the end of all that you're doing, you want to review and evaluate. Now, disaster management planning and training is not a short process. It's not a 1-week course. It's not a 2 weeks training. It's a little bit of a change in your lifestyle where you now have a disaster preparedness mindset. All right. And at regular intervals, you need to review and evaluate to make sure that you're on track, on target, and you're achieving the results that you want to. And you need to have your financial arrangements. These things, they're going to consume resources and they're going to cost money. but it's an investment. So think about it. If Trinidad has spent, let's say, $30 million in training and in preparedness and in construction of disaster management centers and such, with a population of 1.4 million, if we were to be hit by a Category 2 hurricane, our losses will be in excess of $3 billion. So 30 million versus 3 billion, it's a worthwhile investment. All right. So if we could save lives, at least, we may not be able to save everybody's property, but if we could save lives, it would have been worth that $30 million investment. When you go down the road of disaster preparedness, you need to also develop a procurement policy. You need to account for everything that you're going to buy. There must be authorization and there must be justification for what you're going to buy and where you're going to deploy it, what end use you're going to have with it. Even down to procuring, let's say, a tea plate when you're doing a training. You need to account for every single cent because it's just good responsibility. It's just good business. All right. And disaster situations, they also, it could be, I have seen cases where a disaster occurs. You have a contractor with a bunch of equipment. He goes in and he helps, clear roads, fix stuff, yada, 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 do what he has to do. And he does it, pretty well. But then when he brings his price tag to the government, everybody's like, what? But if you have a proper procurement policy in place, you would prevent that from happening. All right. Now, this brings us basically to the end of the teaser, the 2-day teaser of the training. There's a lot of information that you can get from FEMA. All right. And I encourage you to go look at the NIMS ICS model. That normally is a 2-day training. It's a very good training. I'll highly advocate you look at that. But we also do other advanced modules. And one module is at least a week. And we cover a lot of other topics, describe in full details and do a lot of practice to develop the skill set of disaster and emergency management. All right. And there are other companies like mine that do the same. And then there are other agencies, in Trinidad, the Coast Guard used to provide some of the training. Basically, some of the things that we do, but the Coast Guard would give you it very militarily and not necessarily totally applicable to your community aspect. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your attention. We're going to open the floor now for some questions. All right, for some comments.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Damian. Thank you very much for this well-invested time. I want to thank everyone for being here this afternoon to conclude on this, like he said, the teaser. Disaster management is a very, very big topic, but we've tried to put some stuff together for the benefit of all so that people can become well aware of the disasters that may be possible and how to deal with it to save lives, how we can make a difference. And this contributes towards our training as chaplains, as first responders, to be able, as peace ambassadors, to be able to assist our fellow brothers and sisters across the globe, wherever we might be, and whatever time that duty might call upon us to pick up our responsibilities towards our fellow brothers and sisters. Thank you once again, Dr. Damian. Does anybody have any questions? I would like to, if possible, if you have questions, please raise hands, show by your hands, and I will unmute you. Dr. Steele, I like that picture just now. All right. Okay. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge everyone here present today. His Excellency, His Royal Majesty, Nab, we acknowledge your presence, Chief Meswaki, Dr. White, Dr. Uche. I know you've been very busy all day, but thank you for making the time to be with us. Thank you, everyone. All right, taking a moment here. Gerard, I can always count on you. I know you have a question.
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Good.
Hello, everyone, and greetings. You know, it's definitely an honor to see everyone on here, all my brothers and sisters. I was listening to everything, and my apologies for the delay also. All I want to say is that you have me and my support and everything, and everything that our brother was actually stating, and yourself as well. It's important that we all work together because it's about preventing. And I'm a type of person that I like to prevent anything, especially that's going to be detrimental to or hindrance to our families. You know, we need to work together right now. You know, and a lot of people may have their prides and egos, but we need to put that aside and work on rebuilding, but also preventing anything. You know, we have kids, we have loved ones, we all have to just work together. And I will definitely work diligently on my end to make sure that we do everything on my end and let's come together. You know, I've spoken with Miss Cheryl White, my brother Kiwi and everybody, and the chief, and we just need to work together. And anybody that needs to reach out, just feel free to reach out to me anytime. You have my email, my contact. I'm here for everyone.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Always.
We know Pastor John has invited Lindy to be with us tonight. Lindy, I'm just gonna have you come on for a moment. I know you are involved in disaster management in St. Lucia.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Evening.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, great. Thank you so much, Pastor John, for having me on the platform as well. Yes, I am very much involved in disaster management in St. Lucia at both the local level in terms of being responsible for one of the district disaster committees in the south of the island, and also being involved at the National Emergency Management Organization. I hold a number of, or I fulfill a number of roles there at the moment. And I've also been involved in training at not just at the national level, but also the regional level and sometimes at the international level. In terms of training, also in terms of assessing and evaluation purposes, also been on the ground as one of the first responders after an event, as well as assessing, and also in one of the programs that you did make mention of, incident, also been involved at the various incident sites as well. So I have had some experience in some of those areas that you did make mention of. And in St. Lucia, you made mention of a number of areas as you walked through your presentation. As I walked through your presentation, even in your presentation, I noted you highlighted a number of areas. We have some of those. They may not be similar in terms of the 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 terms which may be used, but however, we do have various initiatives that we've implemented to ensure that there is coverage of the incident both at the local level, at the community level, as well as at the national level. And so there's a lot that we do in terms of ensuring the safety of persons. It is not the best, but however, we are able to communicate with persons at the district disaster, the community levels in terms of our district disaster committees. We do have a national committee with our Prime Minister, with the Prime Minister who is the chairperson. And we have a number of committees responsible for various tasks in terms of communication, supplies, and all of those. We do have shelters. I know you made mention of the shelters as well. Some of our shelters may not be as should I say, as professional or as exquisite as the hotel, but we do have schools and community centers which have been identified as our temporary shelters, emergency shelters. And this is where our shelters go in, persons are accommodated and also made as comfortable as possible until they're able to return to their homes. We have also implemented our COVID-19 protocols. That's very important. I know you didn't make mention of that, but that's very important, even more so now with COVID-19 pandemic. We're all faced with that. So it's very important that this should be emphasized at the shelters and throughout our presentations as it pertains to shelter management and also as pertains to disaster management to ensure the safety of the persons who are involved, the team. The safety begins with us and also with the persons who will be assisted, persons who may have been impacted. We don't want to increase or to enhance or further compound the situation that they already face, resulting in further psychological trauma. Okay, so this is my take as it pertains to me being on this platform. So thank you so much again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you, Lindy. You made a very good point there with disease spread at a shelter and the COVID protocols. It's not just for COVID, but at a shelter, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. And I think that's a good point you made there. We'll definitely include it in the next round of training as an additional slide to make mention of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I know today we've thought tremendously on disaster management, but there is a very important topic, I think, that something I would like to add. I'm going to ask Dr. Steele to come on. Dr. Steele, we're not hearing you.
All right. Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes. All right. So Dr. Steele, I know you ran into an implication earlier in the week, and I was thinking about this. I know we didn't talk after that. However, I do think it's very important based on the fact that we are training and certifying peace ambassadors. When we run into situations with, as far as dealing with the public or law enforcement on any type of controversy that we may see or experience as peace ambassadors, as chaplains, we may run into some situations, and these things are not, we can never ever plan for every situation. Hence the reason we are doing our best. But Dr. Steele ran into a situation that is a little unorthodox, and he dived in because with the heart of a champion for peace, you sometimes don't think ahead of your own implications, but you can be implicated. Dr. Steele, if you can, take like about 5 minutes, just condense it, but I want people to understand that being a peace ambassador or being a chaplain can get you into a place where you have decisions to make really, really quick if you want to champion the cause of the people.
Present, good evening, Your Excellency, Chief Governor Dr. Kiwi, Bishop Lamont, good evening to you, all the chiefs and His Royal Majesty, a pleasant good evening. When you throw the curveball and says in about 5 minutes, I just immediately jumped to myself and said, how can I put a 4-hour ordeal into 5 minutes? But I'll try my best. I actually shared it in the class of Steve. I had to use it as a subject matter because as a peace ambassador, there are genuinely times that you will find yourself in trouble. They are. And I think I want to step aside from the element of diplomacy and just briefly acknowledge something that's important. Anytime you're looking at being a person that is creating an element of peace, the interesting thing about it is that you are getting involved in a situation of chaos or conflict. That's the first point to make. And anytime you get involved in a situation where there's conflict, you are also going to be adding to that conflict until a resolution is brought to light. I had a very unfortunate situation, and as a matter of fact, Your Excellency, Dr. Kiwi, I will be very honest. I'll be very honest. I have been doing humanitarian work and peace work all my life, all my life. I've never, ever been placed in handcuffs. I've never had a speeding ticket, never drank, never smoked, never did drugs, never got into any kind of trouble with the laws. I'm known to all commissioners of police in different regions globally. I'm known to Scotland Yard, the Metropolitan Police here, because I was an advisor. And I have never, ever been placed in handcuffs. And I was placed in handcuffs because I think I created an environment where I had to defend or stand in the way to assisting a young man that was being accosted by a number of police officers, actually the British police officers. And I intervened because he had a 3-year-old daughter. She was 3 years old, confirmed. And she was crying and screaming, but the police were just interested in getting handcuffs on him, I think for missing a train fare, because it was in the train station and it was just a train fare. So let me clearly state that the situation that I approached, I wasn't approaching it from the standpoint of if this man is a criminal or not in the community. I was in a train station and clearly it appeared as there might have been a violation somewhere within the train system of the ticketing. And when I said, I identified myself professionally, calmly, quietly, because the first thing you have to do is identify yourself and make sure that individuals know that you're not a malicious citizen just walking around behaving arrogantly. That's the first and most important point. Identify yourself professionally and calmly. And if they ask you, you show them your badge, and I use the term badge for this, for the fact that we are peace ambassadors, and intervening in times of conflict is part of our remit if we choose to look at how can we assist individuals. It's a choice. You're not credentialed to go there and solve problems or conflicts, but if you're in an environment where it is necessary, you can do that. And you must identify yourself to the officer. If possible, find who is the commanding or the chief, the person responsible for what's going on anytime you see 3 or more officers. So I did that. And he said, do you have an ID with that? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And I showed him my ID as well. Please make sure, again, do not ever walk with your badge on you and not have your ID. Never, ever do that. Because if somebody asks you to identify yourself, don't be, look at my badge. Don't you see what my badge says? It could have been somebody's badge that you found. I'm just talking to Your Excellency, Dr. Kiwi, I want to ask permission, please, to deal with it professionally, because I don't want to give you 5 minutes and then I leave problems for myself or for what we represent. Could you kindly allow me, please? I'm humbly begging, because I do.
Go right ahead.
No, the reason why I'm begging is because you see, text messages and giving a short discourse in a hurry can send the wrong message to individuals listening, and I don't want to do that. So thank you so
No,
very much.
I want you to express you're going doing fine. Go right ahead.
I am grateful. First thing, this does not make you a powerful person to be arrogant with. It does not. It does not. It does not give you the authority to intervene or to support with regards to the police or anything that you're doing. It's not arrogant. As a matter of fact, if an officer tells you he does not want you to intervene, he has the right to do that. And I think that we should be in a position to sit back and allow the course of nature to go forward. Are you hearing me? However, I did not do that, and I want to explain. When I saw how they were treating the gentleman and his 3-year-old daughter screaming, and it came across to me as a racial incident more than anything else, and a 3-year-old daughter seeing her father being accosted by officers, fighting him, it's scary. As a matter of fact, it's scary for anybody. So I intervened, and they put the handcuffs on one of his hands. And when I saw them do that, I said, oh no, I can't allow them to put the handcuff on the other hand. So I ran and I grabbed the other hand, the gentleman's other hand. I said, sir, please, I'm begging you, please don't do this in front of this man's daughter. I'm begging you, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. And I know that they have their cameras and they're recording, because they have to record it. I said, sir, please don't do this. Please, please, I'm begging you. And the other officer that was with him, who checked my ID and confirmed to me, grabbed my hand and started a wrestling. So I'm holding his daughter with one hand because the 3-year-old girl is screaming and they want to put him in handcuffs. And I'm trying to stop them from putting him in handcuffs, but I'm also mindful that the daughter is alone. There's nobody else with her. So I'm just holding her hand. And I heard the officer say, please call backup, call for backup for more assistance. I said, sir, please don't do this, please. And I saw 3 other officers, they ran and came, and the officer took off his hat and threw it on the ground. I want to share something with you, and this is very important. This is very important. If an officer's hat ever falls off, and you are the reason why that officer's hat fell off, you're in serious trouble. Your Excellency, Dr. Kiwi, am I telling the truth? Please, I really would like you to acknowledge this with me. Am I telling the truth, sir?
Oh yeah, that's right.
If you are the reason why a police officer's hat comes off of his head, you're in trouble, because the hat represents the force, that emblem that's on his hat. So most officers, anytime you see a police officer in a situation that he throws his hat on the ground, please, please, it is premeditated. I'm not going to play games. It's premeditated, because it means that he's preparing to decide that you cause his hat to come off of his head and you're in trouble. So he came to me, and when he came to me, he grabbed me. He grabbed me and he said, sir, back away with your daughter. Back away with your daughter. I said, sir, please, it's not my daughter. It's the gentleman that I'm trying to assist. Please, I'm begging you, sir. I'm just trying to assist the gentleman and his daughter here. So he says, back away with your daughter, back away. And he's sweating because he ran and came and he's all sweating and pushed me. And I changed into a different person. I'm telling, I want to talk to you being genuine. I changed into a different person. And what I mean by that is, I was afraid. I was afraid for that young man, but then I was afraid for myself now, because I'm thinking, oh gosh, this didn't have to be like this. This didn't have to be like this. As a matter of fact, I called His Excellency Dr. Kiwi and I reported it immediately because that's what you also have to do. Anytime you get into any situation, if you know that you were doing in the line of duty respectfully, honorably, please make sure you call Dr. Kiwi. Because if anything happens, the first person that will be called is His Excellency Kiwi. Are you with me? Please, are you with me? Don't think your badge causes you to be a secret agent and a law unto yourself. It does not. You are under authority. Now, the reason why they're not going to call His Excellency Dr. Kiwi for my situation, I'll give you a little bit more as we go forward. So I said to the officer, officer, please don't do this. And he says, sir, if you continue like this, I'm going to arrest you. I said, sir, you're going to arrest me? I said, sir, please, then arrest me and let me help the young man, then arrest me. He said, sir, please. I said, please go ahead and you can arrest me. It's okay. I'm fine. I'm okay. So the man recognized that I wasn't going to back down and he put the handcuffs on me. He drew me, the officer, and he put the handcuffs on me. When he put the handcuff on me, the first one, he put it on extremely tight. I got my mark on my hand. And then he put on the second one, but he put it on the wrong way. Now, I was one of the authorities in London for stop and search as an advisor to the Metropolitan Police in Scotland Yard. And he put on the handcuffs the wrong way. You don't handcuff somebody like this. Is that correct, Your Excellency? You do not handcuff somebody like this. Your Excellency, am I correct?
Yes, that's right.
You do not handcuff any person like this. If somebody handcuffs you like that, he's a bully and a vagabond. And he just wants to hold those handcuffs in the middle and twist them and yank your hands to discomfort you. So he put the handcuffs on like this and he squeezed them. Please don't think I'm boasting. I really want you to appreciate what I'm sharing. I'm not boasting. Please do not take this as boasting. I'm really talking to us. It's important. You put the handcuffs on the wrong way. Anytime someone is putting handcuffs, they have to handcuff you like this. Dr. Kiwi, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And I just want to make sure that they're aware. They have to handcuff you like this. Anytime an officer wants to put you in handcuffs for whatever reason, never ever resist. Never. Do not ever resist getting handcuffs put on you if you're helping someone. Never resist. Acknowledge it, accept it, have the handcuffs put on. When you put on the handcuffs, I said, sir, please, can I just make sure that the gentleman's okay because it separated us? He says, what do you have an ID? I said, sir, I showed you. He says, do you have a driver's license? I said, yes. And do not deny giving them your ID. Don't be arrogant. I gave him my driver's license and they checked my driver's license. My driver's license actually said His Excellency Bishop Michael Anthony Steele. That's what is on my driver's license. And when he saw my driver's license, I saw he double take. He did a double take when he saw my driver's license. And he said, let me run a check. So they called the police. Remember, the transport police are not the Metropolitan Police. The transport police are different. Transport police. So they called the police and they did a check on me to see what they would find. Now I'm 50 years old. I have a clean driver's license, no points, no speeding, no parking tickets, no fines, nothing. All clean driver's license. And he asked me, is this your address? Another address. I said, yes, sir. He said, what is your name? I said, sir, I don't understand the question. He said, what is your name so that I could call? I said, sir, have you seen a British driver's license before? He said, yes. I said, then, sir, you can call me what you choose. It's acceptable. I'm grateful to answer you what you call me, sir. Because you see, if you said that your name is Joe Bloggs, and there's another Joe Bloggs that's a criminal, it could possibly be you. If you say that your name is Ricky Singh, and there's another Ricky Singh and your name is Ricky Singh, you can have problems. Dr. Kiwi, am I telling the truth, sir?
I've actually seen it.
So you do not say anything. If you give them your driver's license, let him call you what he chooses to call you, please. Because if you call yourself the wrong thing and there's a criminal record for the wrong person, you will just be tied up with problems. Okay. When he came to me after he discovered that I'm not somebody that is out of character, I'm just a concerned citizen genuinely. He came and he says, sir, please, I apologize. Can I take off the handcuffs, sir? You're not under arrest. I says, no, you can't take the handcuffs off. He says, what do you mean, sir? I said, I want to go to your station. I said, take me to the station. He says, sir, but you're not under arrest. I said, but I want to go to your station. And I'm going to tell you why I wanted to go to the station. 2 reasons. Reason number 1, it should never have escalated to a place where an ambassador is in handcuffs. Number 1. Number 2, they handcuffed me the wrong way. They didn't handcuff me the correct way. The person that put those cuffs on did it the wrong way. And I simply said to the officer, sir, take me to your superior, because I want to see your superior so that I can address this, because this should not have happened. Long story being made shortened, the gentleman that was being accosted, he came and they sorted the problem, whatever it was, and he said to me, sir, thank you. And he asked for my number. And then he said to me, sir, please don't let them arrest you. Take the, I says, no, it's okay. I'm well, sir, it's well. I'm fine. And he says, but sir, please, I'm begging you, sir, don't walk through. I said, sir, you have embarrassed me in the train station. I've raised my voice. Individuals have seen me. I'm on the cameras inside of the train station. Sir, I have already embarrassed myself as an ambassador. I've never, ever in my whole life been in this situation. So please take me to your station and let me see your supervisor. I need to see your supervisor. And you're not taking me off. So his officer said, but sir, those are your handcuffs. You can take them off of him. He can't tell you to not take them off. Your Excellency, Dr. Kiwi, I said to the young man, if you try to take these handcuffs off of me, you're going to have one serious fight on your hands, sir. Dr. Kiwi, I did say that. If they tell you I said that, I did. I said to the man, you're going to have a serious fight to get these handcuffs off of my hand. I promise you. Because I know that he cannot get those handcuffs off. And we would have a serious fight. And when they see that I was handcuffed the wrong way, he's in trouble. So I went to the station. They carried me to the station. And when I got there, they said the chief had to come. And the chief came out in his uniform. And he says, please release this man. Please release him. He's not under arrest. I said, sir, chief, no, that's not why I'm here. He says, but how do you mean? I said, sir, no, that's not what it is all about. I think he says, please, I heard, and I'm not interested. I don't want to go through all the paperwork and all of this now, so I'm not interested to deal with it. I said, but sir, he says, you're not under arrest. You're not arrested. I said, but sir, please, you see how I'm handcuffed? You see the young man, I told you he threw his hat off, and he said, please, sir, what is your problem? What is your problem? I said, I would like the names and the numbers of all 7 of these officers that are involved in this issue before you take these handcuffs off of me. Otherwise, you will not take these handcuffs off of me. So I want all of their names. And he said to the officer, please give the gentleman the name and numbers of all of the individuals. And when he said it, I said, it's okay, you can take them off, sir. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. I want to tell you something. It was the first time in my life that I was ever in handcuffs, and I want to tell you the truth. It felt good to be in handcuffs for somebody else and not myself. For the first time, I got the feeling of what it's like to Are you going to stand back and let people take advantage of others and see things going wrong and do nothing and just worry about what is it going to cost you? Why are you a chaplain? Why are you an ambassador? I'll tell you the honest truth. I did not feel like a criminal. I walked through London and the officers were asking me, sir, please, can we hold your bag, sir? Sir, can we hold your bag? They were trying to do everything. They were not touching me. They were not holding me. They were just walking next to me. It's not about being arrogant. It's not about being rude. But to be honest, I believe that our roles calls for us to make a difference.
Yep.
And if we are not prepared, that sometimes we might get put in a position where we look bad. If you're not prepared to look bad 1 or 2 times, then don't be like the good Samaritan that is walking the street, because thieves and robbers could have come out and took him. But it's a choice that we make. Your Excellency, after the scenario has been made, they said they will charge me, they will get back to me if anything comes in writing. If something comes in writing, Your Excellency, I will inform you. But I don't think I will pursue anything. I had a conversation with one of my colleagues from the House of Lords, and it's not for me to pursue anything. I think the young men got it. I think that the sergeant got it, that they're not going to have thugs running around just thinking that every person that is walking around of color is afraid of handcuffs and desperate. And I hope that it makes a difference, Your Excellency. And if I've done anything within the organizational structure that would cause any offense, I want to publicly apologize and assure you that it's not my normal modus operandi, but I sincerely could attest. I really got carried away when I saw a child, a 3-year-old child, that was in a position like that, seeing her father, and she was afraid. I have the video of the whole, I can get the video of the whole ordeal because it was videoed, and I can submit that to you if you need it to be submitted to you, Your Excellency.
Oh,
Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that what I shared would shine some light on possible scenarios that we can be faced with as peace ambassadors.
well, thank you very much, Dr. Steele. I know it must be a different experience for you, but the reason I wanted you to share, you're part of us, your family, and we want to know. And I thought it would be proper for you to share that experience for many reasons. Well, number one, we wanted to know, and regrettably, this happens sometimes. But another point about how you identified yourself, and all of that's important. But I want you all to know that as peace ambassadors, we have the ability to officially report to the UN if they're in situations of discriminations and abuse, whether it is with a government or a local entity or any of the above. As peace ambassadors, we do have the ability to do so. All letters would come through me, of course, but we do have the ability to do that and take it to a different level. But just bearing in mind, acting as a peace ambassador, it will cost us at some point. We are the ones that dives right into the middle of conflict to bring resolution. When we see something that's happening that is not fair, it's not right, if we don't take a stand, who will? Are we going to stand on the riverbank and watch the water flow and look at something else happen and say, well, you know what, it's not bothering me, so I'm just going to leave it alone? We're the ones that has to make a difference so that somebody else can benefit. And I applaud you. I don't believe that you've done anything wrong. I applaud your actions and what you have done. If I had a hat, I would take it off to you. But I truly commend what you've done. Thank you very much. I know we've come a little on time there, but I just want to tell everyone, thank you very much for being here tonight. I know Bishop Lamont has to go to his other session. Just acknowledging everyone here tonight that's here. I want you to know that we appreciate your time and efforts in being here for this training and your support. We applaud that greatly. So our next session would be on Tuesday of next week. And again, we look forward to seeing each and every one. So tonight, we're just going to close off right here. Thank you very much for being here. And I'm just going to say a quick word of prayer and we're going to dismiss. So Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord. We thank you for every person here today, their respected offices and positions. I pray you bless every heart today, every person with us, guide and protect them, and continue to watch over them and meeting the needs of your people, God. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Blessings, everyone, and we will see you on next Tuesday. God bless.